Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxon, your host, here with you, and I am joined by my brother Aaron, of course.
Hello, everybody.
Hola, everybody! And this week on the show, we're going to go back in time and review a Clash of the Champions. Which,
yes,
before we get into the specific one, when I was younger and you were younger, Clash of the Champions was this cool thing because it was
awesome.
It was like before Raw. Okay. What do I want to say? There was live wrestling on a weeknight, at like 8:00. And I don't know. It was just it was always cool. And it had like main event matches, main event talent. It wasn't just like your squash shows.
Yeah, and it was cool because we were, I don't want to say we weren't like, poor or whatever, but we were raised by a single mother in our house, and she wasn't going to drop, even though it was, there weren't like, a pay-per-view every month or 2 pay-per-views every month or whatever. Our mom wasn't able to drop $30 for a fucking show. You know what I mean? So right. It was kind of like our pay-per-view. Like, oh, this.
Yes, because we watched pay-per-views through Scramble Vision. Yes. But yes, to be able to see like live, like I said, not just your stand, and the squash shows were great back then. We loved those too. But prime time was on every Monday, but all those matches were in the can from around the country. So that was cool enough. But Clash, like I said, it was your live fix of professional wrestling with main event matches. And just and I even have, so before I get into it, the Clash that we are reviewing is the Clash of the Champions 8. It is the Fall Brawl 1989, September the 12th, 1989. And it is, I believe, in South Carolina. Yes, Carolina Coliseum in Columbia, South Carolina. And the first note that I have, speaking of nostalgic feelings, it's that classic Clash of the Champions opening. That music that doesn't leave your head. The image of the belts.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's one of my first notes is the Clash of the Champions opening, showing them cool old school belts. Like they like belts had the belt itself was a character. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they all didn't look alike. They like WCW did it kind of cool too, because like not all of them were gold. You know what I mean? Like right. The secondary belts were like they were silver, they were bronze or whatever. Like I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, I believe the TV title was silver.
Yes,
that TV title. Eventually, they have a gold TV title, but during this time, the TV title was silver.
Yeah, just like when old belts, now they're just, I don't know.
My favorite.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say my favorite belt of all time is the Gold Eagle. The WWF Championship that Hogan and Savage wore. But other than that, most of the cool belts WCW had. The United States title. Yeah. The United States title was cool because it had its own unique shape. For the plates and
But just like I said, now the belts they either try to get like too artistic with it, or it's just bland. You know what I mean?
It's generic. Yeah.
Which I know we're not talking about new stuff, but I heard Hunter's like, we're going to change some of these belts.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, just because, and everybody knows that I can be sometimes critical of AEW, but to be honest, just because of the uniqueness of it, probably the coolest looking belt right now is their World Championship because it's different.
Yeah, but it's big. I guess it's too big.
I don't know that it's any bigger than the big gold belt, though.
It reminded me of that big ass fucking belt Magnum TA had that the Western States Heritage Championship?
No, that was the Mid-South Championship. Or one of the Mid-South belts. But yeah, you're right. It was huge. Like it went up to his nipples. It seemed like
it's fucking huge.
Gotta carry this goddamn thing through the airport. Well, I guess back then, working for Bill Watts, no airport, just driving.
But, yeah, I'm just driving.
Fucking
up the suspension in the back of my car.
So like I said, the classic opening here for the Clash of the Champions, and then they show footage of the Great Muta and Terry Funk beating up Ric Flair. And we're gonna I'll get to a comment about that later about Flair in this show, but pleasant surprise. The commentary team for this show is Jim Ross and Jim Cornette. They didn't work together enough. They were a great broadcast team together.
I agree, and Cornette did a good job of not being, when he was on commentary, he wasn't heel Jim Cornette. You know what I mean?
He was color analyst Jim Cornette.
Yeah, like he still sided with the heels a little bit or whatever, but he wasn't just full blown heel. It was just he did a really good job at it, and I don't think he gets talked about enough when it comes he's a great manager, probably top 3 greatest managers of all time. But he doesn't get enough credit for his booth work.
I agree, and he, at this point, he's getting to the point where he's not particularly happy with WCW, but he does a good job. Like Aaron said, he does a good job not healing it up too much. You know, he's not going into like Bobby Heenan or Jesse Ventura territory, but he's also not completely playing straight man, because that's Jim Ross's job. And like I said, that's why I like them together. You can tell they're friends. They have a good chemistry. They work well off of each other. And then add to that mix, not only do you have JR and Cornette on commentary, but doing your interviews is fucking Gordon Soley. What a broadcast team here for WCW at this time.
The only thing I noticed about Soley was they had him really they really kicked on the makeup on him on this thing. Looked like a puppet.
Puppet Soley.
Yeah. I mean, did you notice that?
I bet if I went back and looked, I may not have been paying as much attention, but if I go back and look, I'd see it, because there were times, a lot of times too, that I notice when he's, I don't know what it is about him, and I'm not criticizing. He still did a great job, but sometimes on some of this WCW stuff, he almost has like a deer in the headlights kind of thing going on too. You know, like when they first come to him on camera, he said, I can't, this is an audio show, you guys can't see me, but he's just like, that's right, JR. Like he's just caught by surprise.
I don't want to say he's out of his element, but it was a different style than what Gordon Soley did. You know what I mean? And then later on, like when it started it's cool having Gordon Soley around and stuff, but it's also weird that like Gordon Soley's talking to Norman the Lunatic and just, you know what I mean?
I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like he's out of, like you said, he's out of his element.
Yeah. Like when he would do the WCW wrap ups or whatever, he'd have to be like, Big Lumberjack, Big Josh, and he's like talking about PN News and all this shit. It's like, what's going on?
Or when he went back, or when he had to do the thing where he was like, I'm here outside the locker room of RoboCop.
Yeah.
Like Gordon Soley hyping up RoboCop. It's like,
no wonder he's drinking so much.
Yeah, this is the complete opposite of what Gordon Soley should be doing.
Yeah.
Well, on this show here, he starts out, he's interviewing Gary Hart on rumors about problems within Gary Hart's camp. They say Gary Hart's camp like 700 times on this show. And Gary Hart's talking about, because the main event is supposed to be Ric Flair and Sting against Terry Funk and the Great Muta. And of course, Gary Hart has to say at least 3 times during the show, Ricky Flair. He always called Ric Flair Ricky Flair.
Ricky Flair.
You
I don't know
Ric
why.
Flair and you
I don't know if it
Sting.
was like I don't know if he was like ribbing him or what, but
Shit, he'd even
I
call him
remember.
Ricky Flair when he'd come through World Class and fight one of the Von Erichs. You know,
Yeah,
he just always
like
called
I don't know.
Ricky Flair.
I don't see why they wouldn't have liked each other. So I think it was just the. I think he was just ribbing him. Like I never heard anything of like Gary Hart and Ric Flair having heat.
Having heat,
He's
no,
probably
and
just
me neither.
he's probably just fucking with him. Like I'm gonna call the champ Ricky. Just do that.
Do you know? I don't know at this time because we're gonna get to it. But Terry Funk is not gonna be in the match. We'll get to that though. But do you know, was he legit injured at this time,
I,
or was
I believe so. Yeah.
okay? Okay, because I mean he does show at the end, and again we'll get to that. But I didn't know if he wasn't in the match because he was legit injured, or they just wanted to do this angle.
I don't think it was as severe as what it was, but it's probably just he probably just couldn't work.
The first match that we get out the chute here at Clash of the Champions 8 is a hard-hitting tag team match with two really good teams. It is the SST versus the Road Warriors, the Samoan SWAT team versus the Road Warriors. Essentially, it's the Head Shrinkers versus the Road Warriors. But
Yes.
the of course, Paulie Dangerously is the manager for the SST. Paul Ellering in the corner of the Road Warriors. The Road Warriors in their black spike, well, their black shoulder pads with the spikes. I always like dug that look for them.
Yes.
The black shoulder pads were the best shoulder pads.
And they were a group of guys that, like, I know we've talked about it before. People like, oh, they were better when they weren't in the WWF. They were better when they weren't in the WWF, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, WWF like cleaned them up, and their shit was all shiny and everything like that. When they were in when they were NWA, WCW, they were gritty and bad, like were badass, and their shit wasn't polished. You know, it's just I enjoyed them better there. You remember
there's oh, go ahead.
Just gonna say, you remember what the Samoan SWAT team's actual music was?
No.
They came out to the theme of from Halloween, the Halloween movies.
Now that you say it, now I remember it. Yeah.
It was always cool. I was like, that's cool. I wish they could use that. They did their WWE Network version of it. But yeah, it was like, I just thought it was kind of cool. They just came out to the theme of Halloween. I don't know why, but and they were cool with Paulie. Like, for some reason, it worked. This psycho yuppie with these two
wild Samoan characters.
Yeah, it just worked for some reason.
But I agree with you about the Road Warriors and the WWF. Not that they stunk or anything, but they just weren't. They weren't the Road Warriors. And Vince didn't call them the Road Warriors, but I think that
they still would, though. That was the annoying thing. Like, they would call it, like, in commentary. Like, they'd be like, oh, here comes the Legion of Doom, Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal. Then the match would be going on. They'd be like, oh, the Road Warriors are really picking it up here. It's like, why don't you just call them the Road Warriors? Good God.
Anyway. And they I don't know. We're not talking about that, but that's a fair point to make. I think in the in WCW / NWA, and I don't know if this is going to make sense. I don't know the word I'm looking for. The Road Warriors was a persona. In the WWF, Vince looked at it as a gimmick. I don't know if that even makes sense, what I'm saying. But,
yeah.
You know, because Vince was always thinking about how can we merchandise these people? How are we going to put them on a T-shirt? How are we going to make action figures? You know, so it was more. I think that's why sometimes things got more gimmicks and stuff got more clean, I guess, when they went to the WWF, just because of that. Because he's thinking of merchandise and things like that, whereas the NWA is just thinking of wrestling.
He also didn't want people to, how do I say it, be similar or even be perceived as similar. And I understand, like, I get it. Like, he was like, we are, you know. So I get that part of it, but it's just like, you're still calling on that anyway.
Yeah.
But we're getting into the weeds on that.
this match is really good. I enjoyed this match. It was hard hitting action, and the crowd's fucking hot, man.
Yes.
There aren't. I don't know. I watch old wrestling, and I'm like, God, there are no crowds like this anymore. And I'm not saying we don't have, now crowds want to be a part of the show instead of enjoy the show.
Yeah.
They want their chant. They want their chant to get out there and everything. Whereas these people were just there to watch the fucking wrestling.
and it's like they're in big ass buildings now and everything, and the bigger the building gets, the more you lose that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is what, like, probably I'd say 4,000 people or whatever in
It's
this,
like 2,600.
like 20, see, even less than what I thought, like 2,600 people in this fucking building, and there's not a bunch of like not big, like, I don't know, it's like big and everything like that. It's just that there's not a lot to get lost in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when the wrestlers talk about working in those stadiums. They don't know if the crowd's into it because all the fucking noise goes up. So it's like you don't know if they're actually digging what we're doing or not until the fucking thing's over, and then you go back and the people in the locker room are like, "Man, the people were eating it up." Shawn Michaels, I couldn't hear a shit. I didn't know.
Like I said, good match here. The the Road Warriors go over. I enjoyed it. Paul Ellering destroys Paulie's phone after the match. And yeah, I mean, overall, good match. Great way to open up the show.
I agree, and it was a good, hard-hitting match. They didn't slow down. It was a good match to open up. Got the crowd going, and Paul Dangerously. He's obviously on the fucking Mount Rushmore of managers. Ellering did it. Everybody did their job good in this, and you could tell that the Road Warriors respected Fatu and Samu too, because Hawk did a lot more selling than what they typically did when they were in the NWA in this match. Like,
yeah,
in my opinion. And plus, it's like, for one, they, like I said, they probably respected him, and secondly, they were probably like, these two guys might be able to, like, give it to us, like we get, you get what I'm saying, like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna fuck around and find out. You know what I mean?
We might get some receipts from these guys. Yeah. After that match, I wrote down here jokingly, there was an ad for Halloween Havoc that made me uncomfortable.
Oh, that's in my notes.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay, so let me get everybody in the scene here. You have wrestlers like Sting, Lex Luger. I don't know who else. Sting and Lex Luger pop into my head immediately, and they're standing over you, going, "It's coming."
Yes, it's
fucking
coming.
weird.
And Ric Flair says it, but he says it with like a ghoulish voice. And I wrote in my notes, if I never hear Lex Luger, Sting, and Ric Flair say "it's coming again," it won't. If I never hear it again, it'll be too soon. Like,
but yeah, just
say
they got like one. Like I said, the worst part is, especially with the Sting one, they've got like the camera looking up at him, so it's like he's looking down at you.
Oh, no.
But
leave
anyway,
it in there.
Yeah, I'm glad we both got the same awkwardness on that. But
gross.
Up next, it is the debut in WCW of the Z-Man, Tom Zank, as he faces the Cuban Assassin, who is always a good hand, Fidel Sierra. Z-Man, question: overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
I will say I don't want to say it. I enjoyed Tom Zank's work. I say enjoyed because he passed away, but I wouldn't put him in any of those. I label him as miscast. Everywhere he went, he was miscast. In my opinion, that guy should have been a fucking heel, and either had somebody like Paulie with him, or like Missy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, either have him with like the shittiest manager that you can have, or like the hottest chick, so he can be the good looking cocky guy, and not only is he saying that he's good looking and he's cocky and he's this, that, and the other thing, but he's got the hottest chick on the show. So he's like, if you don't believe me, look at the chick I'm with. Then you guys all want my body and you want my woman. You can't have either one of them. But he was always just a smiley baby face and it didn't work.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that because I've thought for a long time, obviously for a long time because it's fucking many years ago, but I'll go back to '87 and the Can-Am connection with him and Martel. I'm not saying it would have been the exact same thing. I'm just using it as an example, or as like an example or a prototype. But I think that Martel and Zenk could have been like a Chris Adams, Gino Hernandez kind of team in the WWF.
And it's kind of like
instead of the smiling baby faces.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm never saying anything bad about Rick Martel, especially as a worker, but like Rick Martel is a baby face. Yeah, he's gonna have a great match and everything, but he's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And not that he couldn't cut a promo, but like he didn't. He spoke I don't say broken English, but he had that accent. You know what I mean? And his accent worked when he was the model. You know what I mean? Because I'm this that, but like when he was like a face,
get my good side. No, get this side. Like, this is my good side. Yeah.
It worked even better because he had the accent. But when he was a face, he was always just kind of like, he's gonna have a great match, and he's not gonna do anything bad. But he was just kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
But I totally agree with you about Zenk.
That's kind of how I feel about Zenk, is that dude was a hell of a fucking worker, but promo wise, he wasn't the greatest, and his babyface persona was just kind of boring. And everything I've ever heard about the guy, like, he wasn't like a dick, but he wasn't like, I don't want to say like he was. I don't want to say he was a dick, but he was kind of, everything I've read, he was kind of like a little high on himself, and if he didn't like what was going on, he'd just fucking bounce, So it's like, just let him be his actual personality,
Right.
Everything I read about the guy, I heard stories about him. He wasn't like a smiley guy in the back. Like if he didn't like it, he just fuck off, Like let him be that on TV.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And well, he goes over the Cuban Assassin here by submission in his debut match in the NWA/WCW. And once again, just like the SST and the Road Warriors, this match does its job. It establishes Z-Man and what his character and everything's going to be in the company. After that, we get an award presented from the governor of South Carolina talking to Ric Flair about this day being Ric Flair Day. And he says, whereas, like 412 times.
I know, but in my notes, I have Governor Carroll Campbell might be the coolest motherfucker ever in politics because he got styling and profiling in an official government document.
Proclamation.
Like a proclamation. Like he's going over Ric Flair's stuff, and he's like, what was like at this time, Flair was what, like 6-time world champion or whatever?
6-time world champion.
He's going through the whole thing. He's like 6-time world champion, a credit to the Carolinas. And he's been styling and profiling for years. It's like, yeah, he got it in there. Like that's in a document in like their Hall of Records.
Right.
Styling and profiling. It's fucking cool, man. I know he didn't write it, but he still, somebody got it in there, and that dude said it. I don't know if that guy's still alive. But yeah. I was like, dude, this dude's a pimp because he got styling and profiling in there.
Yes, he did, and it's Ric Flair Day in South Carolina. Up next, it is Ranger Ross versus Sid Vicious. Now, my comment here is, and it'll be a little bit of a discussion. I have never, and I guess I can say, all right, I guess I get it a little bit for somebody that might be a wrestling snob, but I've never got the hate on Sid. And I know the softball thing and all that, but I'm talking about in the ring, on TV. Sid was always, I mean, this crowd fucking loved that guy. And he had a
Yeah,
look.
that dude was always over. He was
There's
always
been,
over.
there are very few wrestlers in the history of the business, I'll say, that had a better look than Sid.
Oh, Sid was, we say it all the time, like if you're going to draw a wrestler, like you tell somebody like doesn't know anything about wrestling and there's like, hey, I need a picture of a wrestler. They're going to draw you like 2 or 3 different type of things, and one of the ones they're gonna draw 9 times out of 10 is somebody that looks like fucking Sid Vicious. You know what I mean? I've always said that about Billy Gunn too, and I know we're not talking about Billy Gunn, but Billy Gunn looks like if you tell somebody that doesn't know anything about wrestling, describe to me a wrestler, they're gonna describe to you like somebody looks like Billy Gunn, somebody looks like Sid, you know, that type of thing, and what I don't think Sid gets enough credit for either is the fact that, yeah, was he the greatest wrestler in the world? Not by a long shot, but he was impactful. People liked to see him. They were into him, and he had fucking charisma.
Absolutely. And one of the other great low key, to me, it's low key because people don't bring it up enough, for the way that he presented himself and the character that he portrayed, he actually was a good promo. And I know people will go, what? He fucked up all the time. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's crazy.
He's this wild, unbridled, gigantic, crazy man. So his promos fit him perfectly. Hence, he's a good promo.
Yeah, and like I said, like when he was in the ring, he wasn't going to do anything flashy and everything like that. But you know what? I don't want him to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to watch Sid have a 45-minute Mac Classic. I want to watch Sid go out there, hit a guy, fucking powerbomb him, and bounce. You know what I mean?
What he did yeah, exactly what he did right here with Ranger Ross, and the crowd loved all 1 minute and 10 seconds of.
That's right. And nobody got Sid better than Vince.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But and I know we're going. There's not a lot to talk about with the Ranger Ross match, so that's why I'm kind of bringing this up. It's like when he went that like I don't even know if it was 4 months or whatever, but that brief time that he was in ECW, like Paulie knew that's what these fucking people want to see. They don't want to see Sid going through tables. They don't want to see Sid doing this. They don't want to see Sid doing that. Like Sid would walk out in his jeans, powerbomb a couple people, do his thing, and then just walk out. And that's what the fucking people wanted to see. And Lance Storm talks about it. He said that Sid came in, like, he said that's what Sid would literally do. Like, he'd know about when his match was supposed to start or whatever, and he'd show up, pull up to the back of the arena, walk in, go to the ring, powerbomb whoever he was supposed to powerbomb, and then turn back around, walk out, get his money, and get in his car and drive away. Like, he didn't hang out in the locker rooms or anything like that. He just, he would literally walk in, powerbomb everybody, turn around, walk back out.
Hey, but he did his job. He did what he was asked to do.
Like Lance said one time he walked in and he said he looked at Lance and he was like, I forgot my elbow pad because he's always wore the black elbow pad or whatever. So he just like borrowed Lance's for a second, went out there, did his thing, and then like walked out and like threw the elbow pad at Lance. Was like, thanks, guy, or whatever. He just went back out. He's like, all right. But so there's not a lot about it.
But I wanted to make an example just to let people know how over Sid was. Obviously, in the Skyscrapers tag team, his partner was Dan Spivey, and literally You can watch skyscraper matches where when Spivey's in, the people are just chanting, "We want Sid. We want Sid."
Yes.
They don't care about Spivey. They don't care about the team. They just want to see Sid. And that speaks again to how over the guy fucking was. You can't take that away from him.
Oh, and it's just like I said, a guy knew he was a guy that, and I also don't. I don't want to say it. I don't think he was a guy that would ever be like thinking that he was like the best wrestler in the world either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he understood his job, and this is what I'm supposed to do. And I think he knew not to upset the apple cart. And a prime example of it is when he went to work for Vince. And Vince, I want to make you the new Hogan, and he was like, no, like I don't want to do that. Like, and people are like, he was crazy for like not saying like Psycho said, but like Sid Udy is like, what? He's crazy. He doesn't want to be the next Hulk Hogan. I think that guy was like, I can't pull that shit off.
Well, that and yeah, and also, he didn't want to have to work that hard and that much. You know, people can say what they want about Hogan criticizing his work or whatever, but there's a reason he was the biggest star in wrestling and in the because he was on the road. He was out there doing it every single night. He was, and it takes a lot more work than people give Hogan credit for to be in the position Hogan was in.
And it wasn't even just on the road for him. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's the added thing of Hollywood and talk shows and public appearances.
And like I said, not that I'm sure he didn't complain about it, and I'm sure he loved doing it or whatever. But like Make-A-Wish and children's hospitals and and I know this guy liked Hogan, but like Kurt Hennig, you know what I mean? He was on the road every fucking night. He was probably on the road more than Hogan, you know what I mean? But he could get into a town and then not have to be at the arena till probably noon.
Right.
Like Hogan probably gets to town and then he's got to be up at fucking 5 o'clock in the morning because he's got to go on the morning zoo with Rob and Dick, you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
Peter in the butt and do this stupid fucking shit and then go on to the local news and then go to the children's hospital. And it's like, oh, hey, by the way, there's a VA with some injured soldiers. Okay, well, I got to go to that. And like I said, not saying that Hogan's like, oh, I got to go see a bunch of injured soldiers, you know what I mean? But that was his job. And if I'm Sid, I'd look at it and be like, nah, I'm good.
And that's why that's why. And I know Austin and The Rock were big draws, but as far as top guys, that's why probably, let's be honest, the two best top guys in the history of the WWE/WWF are Hogan and Cena, because they were that. That's what, and I'm not taking anything away from the draw that Rock was or Austin was. But as far as being a top guy and knowing what a top guy does and doing it 24/7, Cena and Hogan,
And I'm not knocking Austin either, but when Austin was the top guy, he had Rock, he had Foley, he had Taker,
yeah,
Triple H, honestly, when Cena was the top guy, there wasn't like 5 other guys up there with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like and it was a different business too by then. Because Orton was there, and Orton was there, and Brock was there, and etc. But Cena was the workhorse.
Yeah, and he was the guy that was the face of that company. And like I said, when Austin did it, there was 5 other guys. When Hogan did it, was probably one other guy, and it was Randy. And most of the time, Randy was a fucking heel. You know what I mean? But he was still that guy. Like he was still up there with him or whatever. But Randy Savage, the Macho King, isn't going to be doing like Make-A-Wish things and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they tried it with Warrior, but it turned out he was a douchebag. So
we're getting into that was his character. But yeah, Sid, like I said, he knew what his character was supposed to be. He didn't try to make it anything that it wasn't, and he would just go out. He would just go out there, beat some ass, and fucking leave. He was like, to me, Sid's an attraction.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy. You put him out there, he does this shit, and is it going to be the greatest thing on TV? No, but he's the guy that you could be like, if you think he's badass on your screen, you got to see him in person, man.
Yep.
You got to come out and see this guy. It's fucking nuts. And Ranger Ross sucked.
Up next, we have a segment that shows Missy and Robin Green, of course, who is Woman, on a shopping trip because they are co-managing the Steiners at this point. And I don't have a lot of notes on this. Missy and Robin go shopping.
Yeah. The story of the line, the storyline is basically Robin Green is basically taking advantage of Rick Steiner because he's some kind of rube, and she's taking his money, and Missy I don't know if they ever came right out and said it, but her character is supposed to be dating Scotty, and she's like, this ain't cool, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was a cool little angle to get Robin Green / Woman onto the show. The only thing I didn't really like about it is I never liked Missy as being the nice girl. You know what I mean?
Yep.
She's always just been either the bimbo heel or like the trashy girl, like she was when she was like with Sandman or Knobs and Sags. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Either the bitch. I don't want to say it like that, but you know what I mean. Like either like the bitch, like she was when she was with like Eddie Gilbert or whatever, or the trashy biker babe or whatever, that type of thing. Babyface Missy was just kind of like,
yeah,
still good to look at, but I don't want to think about Missy Hyatt being nice. It's like you're almost more attractive when you're being an asshole, Anyway.
Well, this leads into a World Tag Team title match between the Freebirds and the Steiner brothers. Of course, the Steiners are escorted by Missy Hyatt and Robin Green. One note that I have here is, where's Michael Hayes' belt? Like Jimmy Garvin's got his belt on. Michael.
Oh yeah, like that's in my notes too. Like, where's Michael Hayes' belt?
Yeah, like where's his belt?
Where's his belt? Like he just forgot it. They were like, just go. Like it would have been less noticeable if Jimmy wouldn't have wore his.
Right. Yeah. That's what I think. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, if one of you doesn't have your belt, just neither one of you wear them.
Yeah, because this looks weird. Like, dude just lost his belt.
This match, of course, it's decent. It starts out really hot. The crowd's totally into it. The Steiners are stiff, of course, during the match. I enjoyed it. It was fine.
Yeah. I have a few notes on it. One of them is Scott Steiner, because I know he did like a little bit of like territorial stuff, but it was pretty quick, his training to TV. So is he one of like the first guys? He's one of the career was on television, like major television. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because he was only he came into WCW in late '88 or was it in '89?
I think it was late '88.
Okay.
I'm gonna check something quick.
He started in '86. He started in '86 because he had those matches with Wojo, I think, in '86.
Yeah.
In Detroit. So yeah, you might be right.
I want to see when he debuted. If that's okay, give me a minute.
Sure.
Actually, he debuted in '87.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 86.
It was close to, it was June 87, but he was basically on television pretty much his entire fucking career, and that's insane to me. There's not a lot of guys, like, at that period, there weren't a lot of guys that you could say that about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it's a thing. There's guys that never even fucking worked, and they have their first match on fucking Raw or whatever.
Right.
But,
yeah.
But before that, I'd say it would have been like maybe Kurt. Or not before, you know what I mean? Like, I use that as an example, like Hitler, but kind of the same type of thing of this guy just got in there and was like, this guy's so fucking good, he doesn't need to be wrestling in fucking Memphis for 4 fucking years or 5 years before we get in there. He's fucking right.
I think Angle was only in Memphis for like maybe 2 months before they called him
like that. But and I think, like I said, Scott was, until he got drop foot and got way too fucking muscular or whatever, he was never bad. Like, it was like he was like a freak, and I just just thought of that. I don't know why it popped, like why that popped into my head so many years later, but I'm like, I just think this guy did his entire fucking career on TV. It's fucking nuts.
Well, and you said he made his wrestling debut in '87, and this is '89, and look how good he is already. You know?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And
I'm sure it helps working. I'm sure it helps working alongside your brother. You know?
Yeah, and his brother is a well-liked guy. Like, I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Rick, other than maybe kind of being a little bit of a bully. But I don't think Rick.
I was going to say other than a few taters here and there.
But I don't think he was like a malicious bully. I just think he was. He thought it. I don't think he was being malicious in his mind when he was doing stuff. I just think he thought it was funny, you know. But that had to help. Like, everybody likes his brother, you know, and he obviously, and like I said, I'm trailing off here, but just the Steiner brothers in general are just freak athletes, and Scotty was just on another fucking level. The things that fucking dude could do wasn't like that Steiner screwdriver. That's one of the scariest goddamn moves I've ever seen in my life. Like, there's a reason you don't see very much of it, because there was probably it would take a badass human being to be able to be like, sure, do that to me. You know what I mean? But it takes an even more badass human being to be able to do that and just not fuck every person up that he does it to. You know, like I don't want to say it's the same type of thing because it's different, but it is kind of the same. You talked about Kurt. To me, he's like the Brock of his generation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just a sickly natural athlete that can do pretty much anything.
Yeah, and obviously he wasn't as big as Brock was, but like Brock Lesnar, if you don't want to go, you're gonna go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't want you to do something to him, you're not going to do it. And fucking Scott Steiner was the same exact way, but more compact, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And there is one spot, and I want to give some credit where credit's due. I know you're not this biggest fan in the world, but fucking Jimmy Garvin takes like a Bret Hart fucking turnbuckle bump, and then takes a hell of a belly to back suplex in this fucking match. Mm-hmm. It was like super impressive. And talking about the Freebirds, I would have been a bigger fan of Mike Hayes and Jimmy Garvin as a tag team if they would have been something other than the Freebirds. Because to me, they're not the Freebirds.
Yeah,
like, just be something.
I agree.
Just be something else. Like, I didn't like when they did like the glam rock thing. It's like the Freebirds aren't glamour. You know, they're whiskey drinking, smoking cigarettes, jeans, and their fucking hairy bellies hanging out. Like that's what
listen to the 38 special.
yeah, they're the guys at the bar. You know what I mean? They're not the fucking goddamn Johnny Glitter or whatever, who's a fucking rock and roll. Hey, that guy. That's like,
Gary Glitter.
Yeah, they're Gary Glitter. Well, they're definitely not Gary Glitter because they weren't into like kiddie porn, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not the New York Dolls. They're fucking Leonard Skinner. You know, does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So they should have just been something else, and I think they would have been much more acceptable to me because I like both guys. To me, that wasn't the Freebirds.
The finish comes here when somebody, we know who it is, Robin Green, excuse me, trips one of the Steiners. Was it Scotty?
Who she tripped?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, because Scotty's the one that got pinned.
Okay.
He got DDT'd.
And the Steiners are unsuccessful in this tag team championship match because of that. Now there's an argument outside the ring whether Missy or Robin tripped Scott, and they're she did it, and that's how we end this match. Again, a good match, intrigue at the end, trying to figure out which woman is the traitor, and we know ultimately that it's going to be Nancy, but that's to come. Next match, Norman the Lunatic versus Flying Brian Pillman. What?
You said that's to come. I was like, it's coming.
I'm traumatized.
Yeah, it's Flying Brian versus Norman Lunatic with Teddy Long, and Teddy Long has the stupid giant key. That's the key to Norman's fucking insane asylum. And I know sometimes you're like, this is where Aaron and I part ways. Like whenever we bring up fucking Bill Irwin,
Like show.
But this is where Nate and I part ways. I never ever liked Mike Shaw. Any incarnation of him, not a fan.
A couple of notes that I have about
hell of a guy, nice dude, funny and everything, but I just Trucker Norman the Lunatic, Friar Ferguson, Meyer. It's like, get this fucking pump off my TV.
There was a high cross body in this match that could have went badly. Did you notice that one?
Yes.
Yeah. That could. When I was watching that, I was like, ooh, that could have went much worse than it did.
That was the thing with Pillman, man. I've seen a lot of shit when at this point in his career, that dude would just fling himself and hope for the best. I think,
yeah.
But I just think he was, how do I want to say it? Like, he would just go so fast that it was just like, sometimes I don't think sometimes Brian Pillman knew how good he fucking was. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just
he's wrestling a match, and it doesn't matter who the opponent is because he's just wrestling a match on his own.
Yeah, you better me because I'm gonna fling myself. And he was so goddamn good. And Jim Ross was his biggest supporter in the whole sport. And Pillman's DVD for WWE is one of the most underrated DVDs. And like he talks about it, like when we were just talking about Brock being like, or Scotty kind of being like Brock, Pillman was kind of like Angle. Like he wasn't a wrestling fan. He wanted to play. It was different. Like he didn't want to wrestle like amateur wrestling. He wanted to be football, and he couldn't do football anymore. So he got into wrestling. And he was just from the start was just fucking a natural at it, and took the business in like a sponge. And I don't know what show we were on earlier, but we were talking. This got brought up. What shows that this guy was so fucking good was that he was not very far in his career, and he had Ric Flair being like, I want to work with that kid. Like, that's the kid I want to work with him. That's my guy, and shit like that. And like I said, Pillman, it was fucking nuts how goddamn good he was. I honestly, and I know he ended up getting hurt or whatever, but I'd put him on the same level as I'd put like Owen Hart. And Owen Hart was like ingrained in the business, you know what I mean? But just he was a high fucking flyer, but he didn't look like he wasn't 122 pounds. You know what I mean? He looked like he could do that style of wrestling, but he could also get in the ring and work with Lex Luger and not look out of place, And it was nuts how fucking good he was. And like, I was actually entertained by a fucking Norman the Lunatic match. That's what I'm getting at. So
Pillman,
crazy.
Pillman hits a sick drop kick during this match. He gets a body slam on Norman, winds up going over with the crucifix. And what I would say is a good showcase for Brian Pillman here on Clash of the Champions. So I'm not gonna say it was a stinker because it was good.
Yes. And then
we get. Go ahead.
Well, they did like I said, they did the post match thing with fucking Teddy showing him, like, Norman getting mad, and then Teddy showing him the big key, and it's like, this is trash. It's like, we went anyway. Go ahead.
And of course, another interview with Gordon Soley interviewing Gary Hart. The intrigue about how there's problems within Hart's camp during this show, building to the main event. Then we get a match between Mike Rotunda and Steve Dr. Death Williams, which my notes are too long. Williams wins.
Yeah, it did go too long, but it was also the blow off of their feud. So, as far as I know, I don't remember a lot of that after this, but it was a culmination of a feud. So that's why I kind of give it a little bit of a leeway on how long it was. Doc military pressed a grown ass man 5 times, though. That's insane. Cornette he had a really good call in this match. I don't know if you caught it, but he talked about.
I probably didn't. Honestly, I probably didn't because the match kind of lost me. So.
Well, he was talking about all their collegiate stuff, because they had been in the varsity club and they broke up and everything like that. And he went through all their college accolades or whatever, being apart from each other. But he goes, but the one thing is, because they became the world tag team champions. And it's like, that's how you bring in people's sports background. You know what I mean? Like, they did all this great stuff in college and on the field and on the wrestling mats, but the greatest thing they did was become the world tag team champions together, and that's why this makes this so bittersweet. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it was cool. I was like, that was a little cool call from Cornette, because like, I was, why is he just talking about their collegiate shit and not their feud? And then he wrapped it up in a nice little bow, and I'm like, that's why Cornette was fucking good. I enjoyed it. And I know I'm probably not saying you're not a fan, but I know I'm probably a bigger fan of Dr. Death than you are. So anytime I get some Dr. Death, I'm like, yeah, all right, this is gonna be good. I like that guy. Couldn't cut a promo to save his soul, but fucking watching him work, he's a guy, like I was saying with Sid, and he was a better worker than Sid, but he's like, this is a guy that you fucking believe it. Mm-hmm. Like, I believe that this guy is as bad as what they say he is.
That's why Watts loved him.
Yep.
Up next, we get a Lex Luger promo. Well, Lex Luger trips through a promo as Gordon Soley holds the microphone.
Dr. Death won that match, by the way. We didn't mention.
No, I did. I said too long. Williams wins.
Okay. I also like the fact that Rotunda tried to attack him after the match, and it did not work.
Didn't work, yeah. Like I said, we get a promo from Luger talking about he's the showpiece in wrestling. He's the best looking wrestler. He's the best wrestler. He stumbles through this He didn't say Allocade's in this one, but it's Lex Luger versus Tommy Rich, and
he did the like what Shivani says all the time. Like Shivani's like all the Luger's promos. Extend your pointer finger and your thumb. Bring it across the camera. Adjust your tights. Point at your dick. Like, that's all. Every promo. Do the L. Adjust your tights. Point at your dick. Every day. Like, and it's funny. After he said it, I can't unsee it.
Right.
Like,
but yeah, it's Lex Luger, the U.S. champion, here against Tommy Rich. Lex Luger's theme in WCW, one of my favorite theme musics of all time. I love that fucking theme song. Love it.
That was one thing that NWA at this time, that's one thing they were like, they had on point, man. They had good fucking music.
Like Luger, this theme music for Luger, I bob my head to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like
Luger's music was the shit. Doom's music was fucking pimp. Sting, like the it's like that fucking ruled. And then when they would use outside music, you know what I mean? Like I was just saying, like with the fucking Samoan SWAT team, them coming out to Halloween, it fucking worked. LaGrange for Barry Windham, that fucking worked. WCW was on point with their music, man, in my opinion.
Not a lot to write about the match between Luger and Tommy Rich. Luger wins the match,
this is the one that I thought was too long. And this also might be a stupid note, but I was like, in this match, it's a match versus one guy that looks like a wrestler and one guy that actually is a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like if you could take Tommy Rich and give him Lex Luger's body, good Lord.
Yeah.
Strap a fucking
package
to that. Yeah. But this was a weird time for Tommy Rich. Like, I don't know. It's just like they were trying to do something with a guy that so I'm trying to say, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but it's like his career as like the white meat baby face had passed. Like, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but
it's true because he kind of gets it back once they put him in the York Foundation. You know, it's like, oh, it was time for him to be a heel.
Yeah, and it's like we're trying to go back to he was the NWA champion. Well, he's the NWA champion for 7 fucking days. But anyway, that style of babyface was done on you can't do that style of babyface on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And he shouldn't have had this long a match with Lex Luger, I think.
Well, after this match, another Gary Hart promo. Now he has a doctor's note on why Terry Funk won't be here. What's that?
Go ahead. Sorry.
And we get a promo from Terry Funk from the hospital room. And, of course, it's good. There's never a bad Terry Funk promo.
Nope.
And how they're talking about how Terry Funk is not going to be there tonight to be in the main event tag match, which is what Sully has been trying to get to all night to try to crack that nut on Gary Hart and get that reveal. And I understand why they did it the way they did it. You want to build anticipation through the program.
You missed it. There's like a perfect thing right there. It's not crack that nut. The theme of this show is bust that nut. It's coming.
It's coming. And then this is something I alluded to earlier in the show that I was going to get to when we got to it. We get a promo between Ric Flair and Sting. And here's my point, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Ric Flair and Sting at this point, both baby faces, they're teaming up against the heels. They're the two biggest stars in WCW. I understand why WCW put them together as a team. Me personally, Nate Maxon, myself, never, ever, ever liked it when they would put Flair and Sting on the same side. To me, Flair and Sting are two guys that should never be on the same side of anything. It just doesn't work. They just are natural enemies.
I agree, but at this point, they were doing it for a reason. They were doing it because Flair had all the intention in the world of putting over Sting and putting the belt on him. So the story they were going to tell was that Sting and Flair got together. Flair wanted to be with Sting, and what the story they were getting to was that Flair was trying to befriend Sting and get him into the fold because he didn't want to wrestle him. You know, like that whole Clash of the Champions, like that was him being like, "Oh shit, I'd rather have this guy on my side than against me." And it was supposed to be Flair working Sting to keep him in his camp so he didn't challenge him for the belt. And then he ended up getting the shot, and that's when they get to but it's 2 clashes after this where that's the only thing of the only reason you're not dead right now is because this guy saved you. You know, so you're not a horseman. Like he's like, that ship sailed. You're not a horseman now. You're done. But we're not beating you up. We're going to give you to the end of the show, you know, to not take the title shot. And if you don't take the title shot, we're not going to hurt you. And then Doug Dillinger hurt him, and the whole fucking thing got destroyed. Like the actual initial story of these guys being together was actually, if they would have played out, would have been really fucking cool. But like I said, happenstance and everything like that, fucking. That's why when they did that match with Luger and Flair, Sting ended up coming out and Luger ended up getting counted out because he wanted to save his buddy. And they told the story of, oh, Luger put his friendship above Sting, you know, or put his friendship with Sting above winning the belt. And it's because they wanted Flair to lose to Luger. And he's like, no, the whole purpose of this was to lose to Sting. And I'm not losing my belt to anybody but Sting. And like I said, they lost traction because Sting fucked his knee up or whatever. But if it would have played out the way it was supposed to, I think it would be an even bigger angle. And I think Sting's first run would have been a bigger story and talked about more. But instead, I got pushed back like a fucking year, and we wound up with a goddamn Black Scorpion, and it was bad.
Well, the match is Dick Slater taking Terry Funk's place.
I do have a note. Sorry.
Oh, sure.
About the interview. Gordon does the interview, and then he kind of he stumbles over himself a little bit. I think he might have been hitting the sauce a little bit throughout this downtime, because he stumbles over what he's going to do, and he stumbles over what he's going to say, and then he says, "Let's send it up to ring announcer Gary Caputa."
I didn't catch that. Gary Caputa.
Gary Caputa.
The best thing with the best mispronunciation of Capeta's name ever. I love that Jesse would call him Kapetsky.
Kapetsky.
Let's go up to Gary Michael Kapetsky.
Capetta said he hated Vince. Listen to an interview with him, and I think Jim Ross interviewed him, and it was Jim Ross, because he said he was doing like announcing for WWF, and then he'd do independent announcing, and then he'd pick up when NWA would be in the area. And he said he felt like a whore, kind of basically, because like he'd be presenting all these wrestling, like the wrestling is the best shit, like getting the crowd hyped up, like, are you ready for the best wrestling? And he's like, I'm saying this on everything that I'm on. And
I think for WWF he did Allentown.
Yeah, And Ross asked him why he decided to like not pursue WWF and go with the NWA. And he basically said Vince was a dick to me, and like he said he'd never say my name like on TV. Like he'd just be like, "Let's go up to the ring announcer," you know. He's like, but you and other people would be like, "Let's send it to Gary Michael Capetta," and let's send it up to the world's most dangerous announcer, Gary Capetta. He's like, but Vince McMahon, he said for some reason he just thinks Vince fucking hated him. He'd never mention his fucking name. He'd say the name of any other ring announcer, like let's go up to the Fink or let's go up to Joe McHugh, you know, like all those guys. And like he said, he tried to like talk to Vince, like, you know, backstage or whatever, and Vince would just fucking blow him off. And then he'd see Vince over there talking to somebody else. He's like, I don't know what it was, but fucking Vince hated me.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Dick Slater and the Great Muta against Sting and Ric Flair in our main event here at the Clash of the Champions.
Sorry. In my notes, I was like, if you're gonna replace Terry Funk in a match you booked, you might as well use Dick Slater.
Yeah, that's in my notes too.
I mean, he's basically
my notes say with Terry Funk not here, you may not notice because Dick Slater just is just doing his Terry Funk the whole
time.
Just
cosplay. We'll just use cosplay funk, cosplay punk, cosplay funk.
Yeah, yep. So we had the same note there too, and we're not hating on Dick Slater here, folks. Just saying.
He's one of those guys that I put as a hell of a worker. Enjoyed him as a wrestler, trash bag human being, but I mean, he attacked a woman with a butcher knife, for Christ's sakes. Yeah. You want to listen to a good crime and sports, listen to Dick Slater, Crime and Sports. It's nuts. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. I was just going to run down a little bit of the thing here because essentially in this match, Sting gets blinded by Muta's mist.
The yellow mist.
Yes, the yellow mist, which isn't that the most no, the black mist is the most dangerous mist.
No, they discuss the mist. And they bring it up earlier in the match, and they're talking about the mist, and they talk about we've seen the red mist and the black mist, but then they're talking about this yellow mist, which has never been seen on U.S. soil. And I've heard it's the most dangerous of all the mist. And then eventually Sting ends up getting the yellow mist. But guess what shot they miss?
Sting getting the yellow mist.
It's behind Muta, and the commentators have to be like, "Oh, it was the yellow mist," but you don't actually see it.
Turns out it's spicy mustard. That's why it blinded him.
Oh, it's Grey Poupon. But
and by the way, just as a side note, that's another thing that is, and I think that's because as we get older, we notice these things, and we've watched the progression of wrestling over. I mean, for me, I've been watching since like '83. Jesus Christ, so almost 40 years. But there are two voices of Jim Ross that, and it's just, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's this Jim Ross, he got him with the mist, and then there's this Jim Ross, the more dignified Jim Ross.
There's
and I'm not even trying to say it's pre-Bell's palsy and post-Bell's palsy. I'm just saying there's like young, hungry Jim Ross, and then elder statesman.
There's young, vibrant Jim Ross, and then there's curmudgeoned. All my heroes have let me down. Jim Ross. Like all the people that I've been saying for years, this is a great guy, have ended up doing horrible things. And by the end of it, he's like, son of a bitch.
By the end of it, he's like, it's Wednesday night. You know what that means.
I've watched AEW like last couple weeks, and he ain't been on it. Where's he at?
They relegated him. I think he does Rampage or something now. They moved him down the card, if you will, for excrement.
That doesn't make any sense. But if you're gonna do that, I'd rather just have fucking Tony Schiavone and Taz. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Excalibur brings nothing to the table.
Yeah. How do I say about Excalibur? What I think Excalibur would be good. What I think he does, I shouldn't even say does good. What I think I know what that guy does a lot for that broadcast team. And you know what it is?
Research?
I think he's their note. Yeah, he's their note guy. He's like Taz. Excuse me. I know Taz is younger than a lot of those guys, but he doesn't know anything about fucking Dragon's Gate, this, that, or the other fucking thing. Tony Schiavone don't fucking care. Like, he's getting a check. And I know he's taking a bigger role since he's got in there or whatever, but I think that's what Excalibur does for those guys. And if they get lost in the sauce on some of these moves or past things or whatever, he can kind of pick up the slack on that. But he shouldn't be a fucking lead announcer. Should not be a lead announcer.
No.
But that's neither here nor there. But like I said, they own Ring of Honor now, right?
Yes.
Right? So fucking that Riccaboni dude in there.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. I'd rather have that guy on my fucking Dynamite show than fucking Excalibur. But anyway, we're getting away from the match. I have a couple notes if that's all right. The best way you can know if Ric Flair is working as a babyface at that time is if he ends up pulling off the move of top rope move off of the ass over tea kettle. Like, only babyface Ric Flair hits that move. That's the only time he can flip over, climb up, and hit the axe handle is if he's a babyface. If he's a heel, never works.
Never works.
But I just farted. But it worked right here. Another note is, and I'm not talking about now, because I think Nakamura would be on this level, okay? But is Muta one of, and I say this, when I say this, I mean, because there was a lot of Japanese wrestlers, but they weren't actually like Fuji wasn't Japanese, you know what I mean? He's Polynesian, whatever. But is he the Japanese guy of this era that fucking got it about this country?
Oh yeah, yeah, yes.
You know what I mean? Like
he's the. And I know what you're saying about Nakamura, and I agree. Nakamura's fantastic, but I will say the greatest wrestler that was Japanese to come to the States and wrestle here is Muta. Muta is the greatest Japanese wrestler in American wrestling history. And I love Nakamura, but it's Muta all day long.
Well, and I'm saying that, but what I'm saying is like, I don't even mean like just Japanese wrestler. I mean, he's like the guy that understood how to take his character and adapt it and work it into like the American style of wrestling. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I'll say this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Is a better wrestler than the Great Muta, in my opinion.
Who?
But Jushin Liger is a better wrestler than Great Muta. But he didn't adapt his style to the American style of wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't take his character and be like, okay, I'm going to take the Jushin Liger character and how would Jushin Liger wrestle the American style. He was like, I'm going to be Jushin Liger and I'm going to do the Japanese style in America.
Right.
Muta was like, I know how to do this, and I don't want to say dumb it down because he didn't dumb it down, but I can take my style, slow it down, and incorporate it to work with any wrestler that you put me in the ring with. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I would want to see Jushin Liger work with fucking Dick Slater. Or
Right.
I wouldn't even want to see Jushin Liger work with Sting. You know what I mean? But Muda
Mm-hmm.
knew how to do that shit. And I think they also, WCW, in my opinion, did miss the boat in not turning him into a babyface. Like, I think the Sting Muda team, they left money on the fucking table, never doing that.
Oh yeah, the fans wanted to cheer Muda. They wanted him to be a babyface.
Yeah. And him and Sting, like, going up against the fucking Horseman, that would have been cool as shit. Like I know it might sound dumb, but like one night they come out and Sting has Muda's paint. You know what I mean? And like he splits the mist. Or there's some night where Muda comes out and he's got Sting's paint. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I think they missed the ball on it. And there's a picture out there. And they did it kind of like, I don't want to say goofing around or whatever, but I don't think it was ever made to be public. But years later, it just wound up out there. It was like a picture of them together like they were a team. And it's like, these guys fucking look like they belong together. And I think they missed the boat not making him a face and actually putting the belt on him at some point. You know, like later on they did, but that's when it became like the big gold international NWA championship or whatever. It's like, what the fuck is going on? But I think they could have done a lot more with him, in my opinion. Like, eventually he just missed fucking Gary Hart. That would have fucking blew the fucking house up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's my opinion.
No, I totally agree. There were boats missed, if you will, with Muda, and I totally agree with you about him adapting to the American style better than any Japanese wrestler ever.
Like him, and like even more than fucking Kabuki, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also 10 times the worker than Kabuki. And I'm not even knocking Kabuki, but 10 times the worker than, because I can't even knock Kabuki because how much did Muda take from Kabuki? You know what I mean? Like the pants, the mitts, all that shit. But he took.
I don't remember when he first came to the States. Did they bill him as Kabuki's kayfabe son or nephew? Because he was actually they kayfabed that he was related to Kabuki.
Yeah, and he was like the white ninja or something like that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it was Cornette talked about it that he was just a charismatic dude too. Like he'd go in them WCW offices and all the chicks were like all about like when fucking Mood'd show up because he was like smooth and they thought he was good looking and he act like he act like he didn't know English and was like confused or whatever. Like, oh, I don't know these cards. Yeah, and the chicks would be helping him out and shit. So yeah, I mean, I just
McDonald's.
Sorry.
Oh, McDonald's, Burger King.
The other guy that did that was so that who was it? So they would do that was Tajiri. I think
Tajiri would act like he did. I don't remember who said it, but he would act like he couldn't speak English when somebody was talking to him about something he didn't want to talk about or whatever.
Yeah, like pay or something like that.
Yeah. Oh no.
But then they get in the car. And he'd be like, "I want Burger King." Like,
yes.
What?
put on Dr. Dre.
I want. They just be like, Then they get in the car and be like, let's go to Burger King. Like, what the fuck? You can speak English? I can't remember who it was. That's gonna drive me nuts now.
Me neither.
Right.
I'll have to look it up. Yeah, because I remember that. I remember that, like the stories. Yeah. Well, this thing ends pretty much disqualification. Like we said, Sting is blinded by the yellow mist, and then big shocker here. Terry Funk is in the building, and he does something that got WCW in some hot water with TBS.
Yeah. Before we talk about that, I've said this a couple of times, and I know I'm a bigger WCW mark than you are, you know, especially at this time. But WCW, for some reason, always had to have 1 to 2 people on every one of their shows in a tuxedo. Like, why is Terry Funk wearing a tuxedo?
Right.
There, or like when Doom got in, like, there was like, I can't remember what show it was, but they got in a confrontation with the fucking Steiner brothers and they're wearing tuxedos. It's like, what's going on? Like, anyway, go ahead. I know what you're going to talk about.
Yes,
WCW got big trouble.
Yes, Terry Funk comes out and he puts pretty much a garbage bag over Ric Flair's head and is suffocating Ric Flair, which, in the context of being a wrestling fan and watching Terry Funk and Ric Flair, this shit is fucking awesome, okay? This is fantastic wrestling right here. This is great stuff. TBS, not so happy with it.
Like, this is a great angle for a territory. This
Which
is
I
a great angle.
I've never understood. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but I've never understood Turner's standards and practices when it comes to wrestling, because right after this, they probably showed a movie, like an action movie, where 15 people get mowed down by machine guns and shit. I never understood it.
I don't understand it either, but I could also understand as being like an executive that doesn't know anything about the fucking shit that you're watching it and you're like, holy shit, he just put a bag over his head and tried to suffocate him. What if some kid does this to his brother and then he's like, oh, I saw it on the Clash of the Champions and Ric Flair was all right. You know what I mean? So I understand it from the corporate side of it, but my thing is, if you want to be the corporate and you want to have, how do I say it? If you don't want that potential type stuff, don't have that product. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But if you're going to have that product, let that product.
Because even if you're not a wrestling fan, wrestling's in the ether. You know what it is. You know.
Yeah. So
I just
get it.
Reading that. Sorry, but reading that. And I'll once again say it to anybody that hasn't read it. One of my favorite wrestling books of all time is the Nitro book by Guy Evans, and reading that book puts so much more perspective for me for the hurdles and the obstacles WCW had, because it really gets into the minutia of the corporate bullshit that they had to deal with.
Yeah, they couldn't say foreign object; they had to say international object.
Mm-hmm. And just
people. Like,
yeah, there's so much that they had to skirt around. Vince got very lucky that he dealt with the USA Network, because he dealt with television executives that were much more in tune with, I mean, obviously, and he was also lucky it was his own company, not owned by the television company. So he can negotiate rights and stuff. But Bonnie Hammer, as an example, you know, she was there with Vince going, yes, I know what you're doing. Yes, I understand.
And it kind of got away from him after she left. She was like his biggest advocate over there, you know, and that's why they ended up leaving and going to Spike or TNT, was it TNN at the time or whatever?
TNN and then Spike, yeah.
Yeah, that's why that happened. But Bonnie Hammer, she was his biggest advocate because she was a USA person, and that there was a time where if USA Network didn't have WWF on their network, USA wouldn't have been a thing. And like that was all they fucking, that was their anchor. Like that's what they fucking had. And she was like,
oh, that's why
keep this happy.
Oh yeah, that's why. So what do I want to say? That's why they integrated so much of their other programming into WWF programming. You know, WWF would talk about silk stockings and talk about all these other things because they knew people were fucking watching this. This is our springboard to get them to watch the other shit. What's our new big
And,
what's our new big show we want to push? Silk Stockings. Okay, let's put it on right after Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. And also,
Time Cop.
if I think WCW would have had more leeway too, and I know people can say what they want to say about him, and I understand why he didn't, because Ted was running a corporation and he can't micromanage every little fucking thing in his bit. He couldn't micromanage every little thing in his business, because if he would have done that, he wouldn't have been the successful businessman that he. Ted Turner did something great that a lot of people don't understand. He was like, I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just need to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. You know what I mean? Like, do I know about this? No, but I can get this
Find me
guy.
the guy that knows the most about it.
Yeah, and because I'll give him credit in this aspect. He never discounted wrestling. He was like, man, wrestling was. I wouldn't have this fucking network if it wouldn't have been for wrestling. And he was smart enough to know that that shit was tail spinning. He was like, buy it. If this goes out of business and I don't have it, I'm fucked. All I got is Andy Griffith.
Wrestling and the Braves.
Yeah. If I lose either one of those, I'm fucked.
Yep.
And part of me wishes that Ted would have just been like, the one thing that I'm gonna be the guy on is the fucking wrestling show. You know, you guys can manage anything else you want, but I'll be the guy that's in charge of the fucking not even in charge of it, just the guy that says we can do this, we can do that, veto this, veto that. I think it would have been a different story. Like if Ted would have just been the executive guy that had the last say, instead of putting fucking what's the guy, Bill Dunn and fucking Jim Herd, instead of putting those guys in there, if Ted would have just been that guy, it would have been a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
I might be in left field on that, but like you're saying, it was a really fucking cool angle. It looked good on TV, and it's just as a wrestling angle, it's fucking awesome. But from a corporate aspect, I can also see their side of it. Of holy shit, just put a bag over that guy's fucking head. Like there was attempted murder.
But I'm gonna play devil's advocate and be like, up next, Terminator. But anyway, that was Clash of the Champions 8. Aaron, overall, what did you think of this clash?
I gave it a B+. I enjoyed the show. As I was watching it and taking notes and everything like that, I wasn't just I in my mind I wasn't like, oh, this is a fucking chore. You know what I mean? It was like it's good shit, and nothing was really bad, but if it was bad, the bad was very much outweighed by the good. So I enjoyed it. I think the best match was Sting and Flair versus Slater and Muta, obviously. The worst match was Pillman and Norman, just because Norman was in it. It's the only reason it was bad. But other than that, I mean, there wasn't anything really shitty on the show, in my opinion.
And I'm right there with you because I'm right there with you because you gave it a B+, I gave it an A-, so we're right about the same spectrum there with it. So overall, a good show, Clash of the Champions 8. And I would like to let everybody know before we sign off that our next kind of series of shows, we did the PWI 500, the initial one that took us like 10 weeks. And then we had the Hall of Shame. The Hall of Fame, of course, will be coming up in January. But coming up next, we're going to do 5 weeks of shitty pay-per-views. And it's going to be fun.
Planned off the Hall of Shame. Yeah, we're going to talk about, if you guys want to watch them, Nate, you can tell me if I
advise you don't, but if you want to, go ahead.
We're going to watch the UWF Blackjack Brawl, WWA, that's World Wrestling All-Stars out of Australia's Eruption pay-per-view. That's the worst one they ever did. We're also going to watch Fall Brawl 95, ECW December to Dismember, and what was the other one?
December to Dismember, Fall Brawl 95, Eruption, it was a Blackjack Brawl, yes.
Yeah, that's next week.
And the other one is, sorry folks, New Blood Rising, WCW.
Oh yeah,
New Blood Rising. God damn it.
Yeah. It's gonna be.
I'm gonna start every one of these episodes like, God damn it! Welcome to the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
Or do like Gilbert at that fucking show we were at. I'm sorry. Welcome to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. I just was like, man, we did that PWI 500, and there was some funny stuff in there, and we did Hall of Shame. It's like, we're going into the holidays. Let's just have some fun and just watch some garbage. Have a good time.
It's like we always say, bad wrestling is good wrestling because
yes.
I don't know. It's just fun to like there's an idea that I have for a show, folks, for next year, starting next year. I want to kick off a show where we're going to literally watch the last year of a dying promotion. You know, week to week. Let's just watch the last year of world-class championship wrestling or whatever. WCW or
But anyway, that comedy is what you call it, like the comedy of wrestling or whatever.
Yeah, it's wrestling with comedy.
Yeah, this will be our trial run. We'll see how that goes. I wanted to. I don't know. I just wanted to. I want to do some creative writing with my notes. It's gonna be fun.
So now we will sign off, and I want to encourage everybody to listen to any of the shows here on the WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network, including Aaron's show, The Year That Was, ... If You Smell What the Arch is Cooking with our buddy Archie Mitchell, Mark's Indie Spotlight, and of course, Reliving the Extreme as we go through the history of ECW with Chad Austin. It's a great show every single week. Check it out if you haven't. So I'm going to sign off here. And we look forward to 5 weeks of shitty pay-per-views, our next series here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And that being said, everybody, have a great week. And we'll see you next week let's start with the UWF.
Yes, Blackjack Brawl.
Oof. I'm going to get myself psyched up for that. To watch it this week so we can review it next week. And we'll see you next week, everybody, with the Blackjack Brawl. Good luck to all of us.